This is a download from BFM89.9, the business station.
Welcome back to the Daily Digest on The Bigger Picture with me, Shiao, Juliet Jacobs and Lim Suen. Earlier we heard from some cat lovers. But before we go into our second story, Juliet.
Yes, we are asking you over on Twitter. Has a nature documentary or film made you change your habits for the better? So far about 73% of you have said yes, and which is very promising. And another 27% of you had said no. But let us know, how did it actually change your behavior? What did you do? What was the film that
What was the film? Yeah.
What was the film or documentary that actually made that change for you? Join in our conversation. You can tweet us at BFM Radio, send us a WhatsApp message at 018-789-8899 or call us at 03-7733-2900.
And now, for those of you who love walruses, the following scene that Juliet is about to describe may be a bit distressing for you.
Yes, it's been labelled the walrus scene in episode 2 of a Netflix new series, Our Planet, which is titled The Frozen World. Viewers are actually confronted with a scene of a large group of walruses in northeast Russia falling from steep cliffs and plummeting to their deaths. So according to Sir David Attenborough's narration, he's the host, of course, the more than 100,000 walruses are left gathering on a single beach out of desperation because their natural habitat, the sea ice, has moved to the north. And here's a behind-the-scenes clip which actually captures the filmmakers from that particular episode witnessing that tragic scene of the walruses falling to their deaths.
I don't understand. Why are they going up there? Like, literally to the top of the rockiest part of the cliff.
Once at the top of the 80-metre cliffs, they rest until it's time to return to the sea in search of food.
So that's the last little section, isn't it? The really steep bit, and they all just... It's really steep, that bit.
One's going to go. There's one right on the edge.
There's probably 200 or 300 dead walrus on like a half-mile stretch of beach here. They're exhausted because they're having to swim 100 miles now to get to food, and then coming back here because it's the only place to sleep. They used to sleep on the ice, dive down, eat the food, sleep on the ice, easy. And now they're swimming 100 miles, coming to this place, climbing cliffs, and they're just exhausted and falling down and either being killed falling or just crushing each other because there's several thousand crammed onto little tiny bits of beaches.
This is the sad reality of climate change. They'd be on the ice right now if they could be, but there's no option but to come to land. And they're just a danger unto themselves. Really hard to watch and witness this. It's just...
So, according to the show's producers, because the icy habitat of the walrus population is shrinking, the animals are being driven onto land to haul out in large numbers where they can sometimes be a danger to themselves. Sophie Lanphier, the producer of this segment, said that watching the walruses climb the cliffs to escape the crush was harrowing. In her own words, she said, "It was shocking seeing something so large fall from such a height. Some die outright or crush others below. Some don't die and go back out to sea only to return to shore later for their last breaths. They're lying there tremoring in front of you. That's what really broke me."
Yeah, so there's no question the scene depicts animals in an environment that they are unsuited for, but filmmakers have continued to receive backlash for placing the blame on climate change. Researchers not only involved in the next Netflix series believe it was polar bears that drove walruses over the cliff. But Netflix is standing by the scene, pointing to the fact that producers actually worked with a Russian biologist who has worked on that stretch of coastline and with those walruses for more than 3 decades.
Yeah, and as their preferred habitat disappears, deadly scenes like this one are becoming a more common occurrence, so says the World Wildlife Fund, or WWF. Excuse me. Ordinarily, they would gather in smaller groups and often lay about on ice. But Sophie, the producer, she has not publicly addressed the criticisms leveled at the scene by those who believe it misleading and deliberately overemphasize the role of climate change. But she did tweet that it was not polar bears that caused the walrus's behavior.
So critics have questioned the link between the grizzly scene and climate change. Instead, they assert that it was the threat of polar bears that drove the animals off the cliff during an event in 2017. So at that time, you probably would have read about this as well.
Yeah.
It was reported that hundreds of walruses fell to their death after being frightened by polar bears in the Russian Arctic, where the documentary scene was filmed. And so Patrick Moore, a self-proclaimed sensible environmentalist and Greenpeace co-founder, said this must be the most ridiculous thing ever ascribed to, quote-unquote, climate change.
Those who believe the circumstances around the Netflix scene have been misportrayed have labelled the episode tragedy porn and fake news. Speaking to the UK's Telegraph, zoologist Dr. Susan Crockford called the narrative of the scene contrived nonsense.
So.
She said that this powerful story is fiction and emotional manipulation at its worst.
Yeah, and another distressing scene, actually, aside from the walruses, it actually shows baby flamingos. It's really quite bad. Struggling to walk because salt has begun to build up around their legs due to their natural water resources drying up. But all of these, right, these shocking scenes, the reaction to it, and particularly to the hard-to-watch scenes like the two that we've mentioned, is actually having the desired impact for filmmakers. People are shook, if I can use that term. Some of the responses from social media, and these are quotes, are literally full-on sobbed to the walrus moment. This whole docuseries is so heartbreaking. I wish as humans we can do more. Another said that the scene was the saddest thing of their year so far, adding that they were honestly scarred. And others also said they wanted to continue watching, but that specific scene destroyed them. This was, of course, in reference to the walrus.
And on Wednesday, Netflix actually issued a warning for animal lovers and sensitive viewers, posting timestamps for some of the more upsetting scenes in the documentary.
Yeah, so they've actually listed, which scenes are distressing, which ones might really upset animal lovers.
And it is very distressing.
I mean, watching that walrus scene was, nobody wants to see anything dying on the screen, right? Especially when it's a documentary and it was real and not staged.
Yes, yeah. And they're such majestic animals.
Yeah.
Okay, not that I'm saying it's okay if it's not majestic animals. It's just heartbreaking to know this is happening for real.
Yeah, exactly. So, but there is something about the film, about film in general, actually, which captivates an audience so easily. And the EcoKnights, actually, that team, they've been harnessing this power to spread the message on so many different environmental issues to the masses. And I actually spoke to Yasmin Rasyid. She's the founder of EcoKnights earlier this afternoon to get her take on using film to create change in people's attitudes towards environmental issues. Here's our conversation. Yasmin, I don't know if you have seen the new Our Planet series, but, if you have, how did it make you feel?
Emotional, a bit hopeful at the same time, I think, the way it was narrated. And it clearly shows that a lot of the issues that we all face on this planet has a lot of implication on man-made activities. I think that aspect was very, very evident in the series.
Okay, and the article that we were discussing, and how some of the all that criticism that was leveled at those distressing scenes, the walruses, for example. There was even one about the baby flamingos. I mean, did you consider that emotional manipulation at its worst? Tragedy porn and all of that.
To a certain extent, yes. I think from a visual perspective, the traditional approach people use is to use these kind of tactics to draw more emotions from you, to draw sympathy from you. But I think there's also an excessive use of these materials currently. And I think there are some studies out there from behavioral psychologists using the more positive approach to highlighting these issues and challenges, actually generate better understanding of the issue and more action towards that issue. So I'm also in a conflict. I mean, at one end, if you don't show these kind of tragedies, it doesn't get people's attention.
Yeah. But
at the same time, maybe excessive use of this tragedy approach actually makes people feel even more dissociated from it. So I think there's a fine line between how you balance using the right information to show both the positive and negative side of things that you see on the planet.
But like for this one, for example, those particular scenes, it got the reaction, and I think that the filmmakers wanted. We were talking about it earlier on the. People are saying that's the worst thing I've seen. It's made me change my mind about how I view everything. So I guess, like you said, there's a fine line, but sometimes it does. I guess for some people it works, and for some people it just doesn't, right?
Yeah. I mean, a very good case study is if you look at the issue with the straws that was stuck in the turtle's nose, right?
Yes.
Had we not seen that visual, this whole perspective of the impact of human use of straws or human responsible disposal of it would not probably be heightened up to the level now you see banning of straws as a norm, right?
That's right.
I mean, that's one positive spin of how a visual can change people's behavior, can change policies, can reduce waste. But I guess that's the part where filmmakers or producers or the script writers need to be very, very careful about what sort of issues that they're going to highlight. If it's highlight up to a point where it empowers the audience to do something, maybe then you've hit a jackpot. But if it's just, another tragedy, you watch it, you feel sad, and then you switch it off, you move on with your life, then maybe it won't be that impactful.
Okay, but I mean, you've been doing the KL Eco Film Festival for years now, more than a decade. Yeah. And I mean, I know you are one person who believes that film can foster change long after the footage stops. Do you think more and more filmmakers are using their projects and centerpieces as action campaigns, prolonging that impact?
Yes, very much more. I mean, I would like to highlight that perhaps the more Western filmmakers, they don't just stop at making a film. They have a really strong advocacy campaign that follows through with the film. So be it a website to, download information or to get a draft letter out so that you can use it to send it to your politician to demand for, say, no plastic bags and all that. So many of these filmmakers realize that a film can only do so much, but you need to follow up with guidance and action for your viewers to take charge. From the Malaysian side, we're really, really lacking in that. And the kind of films that we have witnessed in the last 12 years of CLEF, we're still very much on that creative trajectory, using very abstract messages. And our documentary, command of documentary films on environment is gradually improving. But there is room for a lot more innovation and creativity, especially on getting the messaging right and evoking action from the audience.
But I mean, you have seen, right, from, the films that at the KL Eco Film Fest, for example, you have seen change, as a result of people watching those films and actually understanding the context of different issues, for example.
Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, it's quite a shame that we are only a static festival. People have to come to us. But if we have seen children emotionally, I mean, it sounds bad, but, they were emotionally, I guess, taken to what they watch. I've seen families come to, and I assume parents think that films are always a good opportunity to get your fat children involved and maybe to start conversations that's difficult to start at home. I've seen university students coming in with their classrooms with their lecturers, and films gives you that extra connectivity to that issue. Films allow you to hear more perspectives, more global, wider perspectives on other people's views on environment. And I think that is something that you don't get within the four walls of maybe a campus and all that, So I think it just is that additional platform for people to network, to get to know the issue, and more importantly, that person sitting next to you while you're watching that film, to connect to that person as well. Yeah. So it's really about trying to create an ecosystem of change makers through audiovisual materials.
Yeah, so that was Yasmin Rasyid, the founder and president of EcoKnights. And EcoKnights, of course, organized the annual Kuala Lumpur Eco Film Festival. Lots of good things there, and we will keep you updated when that's happening. So, I mean, I was just curious, we were asking on Twitter, has a nature documentary or film made you change your habits for the better? What about the two of you? Sue-Ann, anything?
I remember watching the documentary Blackfish. a few years ago. I think it was just a normal afternoon. I had nothing to do. And I was like, oh, this looks like a good documentary. And I watched it and I was so depressed for the rest of the day.
And just a summary of what Blackfish was?
Yep. So Blackfish is a documentary film about the life of Tilikum, the orca that was at SeaWorld. So Tilikum, I think, was captured from the ocean when he was just 2 and then was kept in SeaWorld for 20 years in just a small pool. He was trained to do tricks. I mean, all he could do was just swim round and round. And then I think throughout his years, he actually killed 3 people. One of them was his trainer. But I think this whole thing really highlighted how much Tilikum himself suffered rather than what the people, the blame was more put on the people at SeaWorld. They realized that they can't blame him because he was made to behave that way.
Of course, yes.
He's
He's not meant.
animal.
He's not meant to live in captivity in that manner.
Yeah, and the film is just very jarring. You know, they include clips of how Tilikum actually pulled down his trainer underwater. It was all clips that were filmed when things were happening. So it kind of just shows you exactly what happened and what drove Tilikum to behave that way. And then it was just very sad when he died as well because he lived such a constrained life and then he just died there in SeaWorld.
Yeah, but how did that actually change you? I mean, what changed in your life, from that?
I think after that, I definitely thought about things like this more, like when I go on holidays, if someone's like, oh, there's a good aquarium sort of thing in the country, but then it made me think twice, like if I go there, am I supporting activities like this? Am I supporting people who are capturing animals from the wild and then keeping them there and making them do tricks that are not what they would naturally do in the wild.
Precisely. So it's like forcing them to perform for profit, but under the guise of conservation, which, a lot of them do use that, but we've done a show on that as well.
Yes.
But yeah, wild animals should be kept in the wild, I think so.
And also because just they're animals, so we shouldn't think that just because we're humans and they're animals that, they can't say what they're feeling, so we can just, it's fine.
I think Tilikum showed pretty much how he was feeling. If he killed 3, including his own trainer, it's like, get me out of here.
What about you, Juliet?
So for me, it was actually, never mind the fact that I've been doing Earth Matters for 9 years now, but it was actually the film Okja, which is about, this genetically modified pig, this huge one, and the kind of torture it went through, and that actually changed me to go not quite vegetarian, but to stop eating all other meat except chicken at the moment, in an aim to go vegetarian actually. So it was all about the cruel meat industry, also larger topics of how farming and animal farming, the kind of impact it has on the environment. So it was a lot of different things, but yeah, so it was this genetically modified pig that actually made. I know it's terrible, despite the fact that I know all these scientific facts, but it was they totally toyed with my emotions, and it worked. I've not eaten pork.
I mean that is a good point, because emotional manipulation is part of any sort of media that's put out there for us to consume.
Precisely.
I don't. In a sense, I don't blame the Netflix filmmakers for going down that route, because at the end of the day, what's their bottom line? Their bottom line is views and ratings. As to whether it will have the desired effect of changing people's behavior to be more environmentally friendly, that I'm not sure, because you could say that. Like Yasmin feels as well, you will desensitize people as you show more and more awful images. People will just start to tune out, right?
Yeah, and I think this not only applies to animals but also humans as well. Like in the news, when you see so much reporting about wars that are happening abroad, or even just animals being abused, if you see photos of that again and again and again, at some point people are going to be desensitized, and then it's just like, it's just another day in the news.
But I don't know. So I'm torn between that. I think a lot of people just don't listen, and then finally when they are confronted with it, it will make a change. But again, like Yasmin said, if you don't, if like filmmakers who are using the shock factor, if there's no sort of follow-up campaigns to that or whatever, it also, can die a very slow death, and the impact is not felt. But I don't know. I'm over on social media. Anwar Roslan sent us a WhatsApp message, and he said that I watched a movie, An Inconvenient Truth, some years ago, and it was Al Gore talking talking about climate change, of course. And it made me choose anything that can help to sustain a good environment, from everything from the food that I ate to the car that I drove now, from just a hybrid and not a full electric, but it's still something. So well done to you, Anwar. Very good. And over on Twitter, we asked you, has a nature documentary or film made you change your habits for the better? And 72% of you have actually said yes. So that's really
encouraging.
Really wonderful. And another 28%, of course, said no. But that's great.
And perhaps you just haven't hit on the right film or documentary yet that really connects with you.
Yes, perhaps.
Do we have anything on social media related to our first story?
Yes, that's right. So our first story, we were talking about whether cats actually
respond to their names.
Yes. And Yazzie says that I would say it depends on the cat's breed. I have a Bengal named Bate, and she responds to everything I say. She goes for walks and also greets me the same way dogs do. And she loves the sea too. And we have conversations daily. And when I cry, she licks my tears. And Yazzie actually sent us a lovely picture of her, of Bate playing in the water.
That's amazing.
Gorgeous cat there.
Yes, Bate looks like a lovely cat.
So
a real
adorable.
friend. Looks like a real friend.
Yeah.
Well, you can keep the thoughts coming in. Tweet us at BFM Radio, WhatsApp us at 018-789-8899, or look us up on Facebook at BFM The Bigger Picture. If you missed any part of this show, you can download the podcast at bfm.my, on our BFM app, or on Spotify. Coming up at 3 p.m. on Live and Learn, another episode of Law and Behold, where Juliet will be exploring the constitutional role of the monarchs, a very, very hot topic right
indeed.
now.
Yep.
You've been listening to The Daily Digest, and here's Hijau by Zainal Abidin on BFM 89.9.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To find more great interviews, go to bfm.my or find us on iTunes. BFM 89.9, the business station.